Boleh pinjam RM3 tak? Ya. Mineral water. Boleh?
Is it okay, uncle?
Okay.
谢谢你。
谢谢。
Welcome everybody to Muslim Pros webinar tonight. I will just start the session by giving everyone the Islamic greeting of peace. May peace be upon everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my name is Kaven Siddique Lim. I'm going to introduce myself in a while. I'd like to welcome everyone from different parts of the world. Currently, I'm in Singapore. It's about 11 p.m. at night right now. I'm sure from other parts of the world, you guys have different timings. And yeah, at this point of time, I'd like to invite everyone to drop a message into the chat. Let us know where you're from, what time is it right now in your locality, and we'll be very excited to have a conversation with everybody. So just a short introduction to today's topic, this webinar topic and agenda. First and foremost, we kind of conceptualize this webinar and the topics here tonight, related to what is happening in the world today. Right? Number one, there's a lot of uncertainty in this world. But what we realize as Muslims, all around the world is that there are things that bond us together and join us together as Muslims. And one of these things that we're talking about tonight is love and kindness, right? We believe it's very crucial to emphasize on the similarities that bind us, not just as Muslims, but as a human race. So this is what we're going to focus on tonight with the help of one of our guest speakers who will be coming in later. Additionally, one of the objectives that we hope everyone can partake in as well is to get involved in some big or small acts related to love and kindness, not just within our own circles, but one of the ways that we've opened up for everyone to do so tonight is to actually contribute into a fundraising initiative organized by Muslim Pro to actually assist the Palestinian children, and this is called the Palestine Children Relief Fund, PCRF. So this is to raise funds for the children who are victims of the crisis, as we know that they are experiencing currently overseas. So I believe the team will be sending a link directly to the chat for donation, and as well doing the sign ups as well. Probably you guys have already gotten the link to it. Last but not least, as you guys have seen in the video earlier, we really want to amplify positivity. We believe that positivity has a big impact, not just on on a big level, but in your own circles. When we have positivity, love, and kindness, this is really a big motivator within our own community. So our hashtag today, we have a few. Number one is hashtag more kindness, more barakah. On top of that, we also anyone who loves to spread kindness, we welcome and we invite everyone to be a hashtag kindness warrior. So, if you see any acts of kindness within your that you've done or in your own circles, feel free to post it on Instagram, post it on TikTok, and tag Muslim Pro Official. And this is our official Instagram page. So, let me just start by introducing myself. So I come from Singapore. I'm a Chinese Muslim convert. I became a Muslim about 5 years ago in 2018. So I'm 25 this year. So this is actually Muslim Islam has been in my life for about 20% of my life right now, and I can say that my time as a Muslim has been the biggest and the most blessed part of my life. I got closer to Islam during COVID and realized that there's so much love in our Muslim communities that we want to share, and as a result of that, I started an organization called Convert Central to help converts in their conversion journey. So enough about me. I'm very, very happy to invite our guest speaker here today, Brother Jay Palfrey. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about Jay. So he has a passion for traveling, and I'm sure a lot of people has heard about him. He loves documenting his travels. He's been to countries like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, China, India, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, and I think he is currently in Lebanon as well. So let's invite Jay over. Hi Jay, how are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome everybody from all across the world.
Hi, how are you? How are you today? Are you feeling great?
Alhamdulillah, very good, very good. I'm here in Lebanon, so it's currently 5:10.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Why not? We just start with a few light questions. What are you doing in Lebanon on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, I'm pretty much living, working here. As everyone knows, I'm a travel photographer, and I decided to move here from Istanbul earlier this year, and I love it here. I love daily life here. I love meeting people. People here are so kind, and obviously this is one of the topics for today, spreading kindness. And I'm so excited for this webinar.
Great. So before we jump into the main part of our sharing today, let's just talk a little bit about what we are really here to do. As mentioned, today's focus is love and kindness, and how we're gonna get into that is through our own personal stories. We are here. We are not joined here only through the fact that we're here talking about Islam, but we also join through values like love and kindness. And today we're gonna talk about how you came into Islam, how the love and kindness of the people around you open your heart up to Islam. So it's really important that we talk about the impact as well, and hopefully inshallah everyone here on this webinar will be motivated to bring that kind of love and kindness into their own communities as well. So let's go into the first question, and I'm sure everyone has submitted your questions to us. I think in the registration form you guys have submitted some of the questions that you wanted Jay and or I to answer, so we try to answer them as much as we can. But if you're not able to answer all of your questions today, not to worry, within our own channels we'll be trying to answer them as well. So at the same time, if there's any questions that you guys have on the webinar, please leave it on our comments on our Facebook page or YouTube live streams. Inshallah, at the end of the sharing we will have a Q&A segment. Okay, so let's just start from the beginning. I'd like to know a little bit about your religious background, Jay. How was religion like when you were growing up, and what were your initial thoughts about Islam before you got to really take a long, hard look into Islam?
Sure. So many people know I grew up in England, a very small village in the middle of southwest England, and I was surrounded by people who all look the same, follow the same path. Many people followed Christianity back in that time. My family specifically, we didn't have any religion. I went to a Church of England school. We sang hymns every Friday, a very traditional path. But my family in general, we didn't follow any particular religion. And it wasn't until 3 years ago. It actually started 4 years ago, but we'll move into that shortly, where I actually took my Shahada in Istanbul. So to go from no religion surrounded by Christianity to then 18 years of learning later to then finally following this path, and I'm so blessed.
Mashallah. I think most of the questions that have been submitted through the registration forms was about involving about your actual journey to Islam. People from London, Singapore, US, Pakistan, people from Dubai have been asking, how do you discover Islam? What was the turning point? So perhaps Jay, share with us, what was your first point of contact or interaction about Islam?
Sure. So I guess I won't speak about this too much, but my first real interaction was from the British media, and of course they're not very positive about it. So I was in Istanbul back in 2019, one of my favorite cities in the world, and we'll talk about that later. But I found a very cheap flight to Kurdistan, northern Iraq, and I just got on that flight and was introduced to a whole new world, a world of such beauty, kindness. And for me, that's the biggest turning point. That's the first biggest step that I took, was taking that flight and spending a whole week there and discovering everything about it. And for me, that was the biggest turning point, for sure.
I see. Great. And you mentioned that, you came from where you were into a whole new world when you first traveled overseas and that was your touch point with Islam, right? What were the main differences that you observed when you came from your home country to when you started traveling around the world?
Mm-hmm. To put into one sentence, when I was in the UK surrounded by the same like-minded people, my world was in black and white. And then when I started seeing these people, this brand new world, it's like my life was back in color. I think that's like the basic thing I could say. But people back at home, many people know, especially in London and other cities, people are very closed off. They're very focused, working the 9-to-5 lifestyle, and work is more important than family life and things like this. And then when I got introduced to, especially the Middle East and Muslim culture, family, kindness, and love, some of the most important things. So that's one of the biggest things. I felt like I was being hugged by family members, even though they were strangers.
Mashallah. It's really, this is something that that really speaks out to me as well. Initially, coming from a non-Muslim background, I'm sure that you will relate. The last groups of people that we will expect to show kindness or love to us would be the Muslims, right? And when we actually get to know about Muslims, you realize that these are the people that are filled with the most love and are the most respectful on a day-to-day basis, right? So were there any specific incidences of kindness and love within your travels that really spoke out to you?
Wow, we only have 1 hour for this webinar, so maybe I can just give a few examples.
Sure.
I guess I feel it every day. There's so many examples that I can show, but Pakistan, I guess I have the most examples. The amount of times, every single trip I go there, I'm offered just chai on the street by strangers. I chat to security guards. People, especially in Pakistan that I've experienced, are just so kind and friendly. If you go to Pakistan as a tourist, anyone specifically, you can go there and you can spend your whole trip with local families, and you'll be fed the most amazing home-cooked food with families. And every day in my trips, especially most of them, Muslim majority countries, are just every day is kindness over and over again.
Mashallah. And I think a lot of it stems from the fact that religion pushes us to be kind, to the extent where we have prophetic sayings that say even kindness can be a charity in and of itself. So even if one is poor, we can do charity by smiling, giving a good word, and that really is the core Muslim identity, right? We see that Muslims are genuinely kind, and when people are genuinely kind, we can see it. I recall my first time at the mosque. I was really nervous, because I was born Buddhist or Taoist, and I grew up in that kind of environment. So I first got an interaction with the Muslims by being invited to a mosque event, right? And I've been to temples and churches before, in the benefit of being in Singapore, we have a lot of religions, right? And this experience was sometimes a little bit too closed off to me, because a lot of people were just in their own circles doing their own things. They didn't really ask me what I was doing or how did I feel, or when they were asking me, they were just asking, okay, do you want to join our religion? So especially Islam, then I was just about 18 years old. I was standing outside the mosque. I was very, very, very anxious, very nervous. I walked in. The first questions that the brothers in the mosque asked to me was, have you eaten? Have you drank? Are you really comfortable? Right? And how can we serve you? Things like this. And I'm sure you see that kind of love when you travel, and that really put me off, like, hey, like, these people really love me. And I was just wondering, like, why do they have that kind of love for someone they've never met, someone that isn't even a Muslim yet, right? And that's something that really opens the hearts of Muslims, people who are exploring Islam all around the world. So maybe let's zoom back to your story. At the point of your conversion, right? What inspired you? Was there a particular incident that inspired you to eventually take the Shahada and become a Muslim?
So initially, it started, as I explained earlier, from my trip to Kurdistan and other countries around the Arab area. And the biggest thing for me, we all experienced COVID. We have a pretty similar story, actually. And when COVID hit, obviously all worldwide borders were shut down. I was stuck in the UK. I wasn't working, all my jobs were shut down, and I was studying for uni. My university went online, so I was at home, and I've always been interested in all religion, the teachings and the ways of life. But for me, especially, I'm a trained journalist, so I'm very inquisitive about everything, and I decided to dedicate my time during, it was like the month and a half and of COVID between March and May, to actually read the Quran. And I did my first Ramadan, that was 3 years ago, and I took my time to really understand. So there was my travels, yes, but also reading the Quran back in COVID.
MashaAllah, mashallah. And I guess this is the appropriate time to kind of slide in one of the questions that we received before the seminar. Riza from Canada asks, you once mentioned, as you have just did, that reading the Quran during the COVID lockdown helped you get in touch with your faith, right? And you wanted to find out what made you begin reading the Holy Book and what are some lessons that you learned from it?
So, yeah, I back in the start of 2020 in January, YouTube, as many people know, is actually my full-time job. I'm very interested in video and people's reactions. So back in January, I was watching a lot of Quran recitation reactions, and the emotion I felt listening to these and seeing their reactions, it was like, what am I missing here? Because the UK media, they say everything about Muslims, and it's changing now, but back then, everything about Muslim life and culture was negative. Mm-hmm. So why are these things that I'm hearing making me so emotional and feeling so good? So I really, after that, I just kept moving. Months passed, and then I finally took my Shahada in Istanbul. It was August 2020.
Was there like a particular incident that sparked your Shahada? Was it like something someone said that, hey, like, I want to take the Shahada right now and be a Muslim right now?
So I actually wanted to take it during Ramadan back in 2020, but I wanted to take it in a place which my heart is attached to, and my heart is attached to Istanbul.
MashaAllah, mashallah. Were there any challenges then that you met around along your conversion process? Any issues with the practices? Any issues with understanding Islam? And the second part of it is that how did the people challenges that you had?
Yeah. So when I first took my Shahada, it was amazing, but obviously I grew up in the UK. Alhamdulillah, my family were amazing. My friends also, I'm very blessed to have them. But I was so worried about the people around me. Obviously, the UK people, as I said, they're so fed by the UK media, they don't understand properly. And I was so anxious and scared. Even when I've been traveling or even going back to the UK, I was so scared, especially after traveling, how people would react to me coming home. And seeing them, and what, like, if they would think any negativity, or like if I changed, and I haven't changed. Islam is a daily practice which shows you have to show kindness, respect, gratitude, and I felt like I was like that before I took my Shahada anyway. I felt like I've always been Muslim since I was born, of course, but yeah.
Great. And I think that's something that that's a big misconception that people have about converts joining Islam, becoming a Muslim. Often what is more often thought of is that these people fundamentally change, and we start to have a big shift in our personalities. But I think the best way that we can describe coming into Islam and becoming a Muslim is that whatever that is good within us is amplified when you become a Muslim.
Yes.
Whatever weaknesses you've had or flaws that you have after becoming a Muslim, these things are diminished, right? And I think the beautiful part about Islam is that it sets a bar for us, right? In Chinese culture, we've always had this aspect of filial piety, right? But nobody talks about how much, it's just, okay, you have to be good and kind and nice to your parents, right? Coming to Islam, we realize that the bar is set. In the Quran was mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, exalted and great is He. He says in the Quran, do not even say a word of annoyance. In the Arabs, they say oof, right? But that means you can't even say, if you're annoyed, you can't even, in our culture, we do this, like we say, make a sound of a noise. You can't even do that. And that's something that really changes a person's perception of how to treat the people around them. I think Islam really gives us that, On top of that as well, things like the Prophet, the Prophet, peace be upon him, has said that, he has come to perfect, human character. he has come as a mercy, you know, and he says Allah is kind and he loves kindness, right? So that really gives us Muslim the identity of kindness that we have to strive towards as well. So you start to see that, you know, when someone embraces the faith, you know, most of the time we are thinking as a Muslim, we gotta explain to people what Islam is. We're gonna do a comparison of religion. But hey, like that's not how people come into Islam. People come into Islam because you show love to them, you know, and hearts open because love is shown to these hearts and they open because of that. So like this is something that I think everyone, you know, can take away from even myself, you know, from our journeys, that the kind of love that you show to someone, it can really go a long way, you know. That might even be a cause to them becoming Muslim, you know, at the end of it. All right, so let's go to some post-conversion questions, right? This is really something that's very interesting, you know. And we had a question that come in, you know, from Zanzibar. One question was, what did you like most in Islam that was different from other religions or from the religion you were before?
I mean, I was an atheist, so so much has changed and so much that I love. I don't think I can pinpoint exactly one thing, but coming from, I guess the biggest thing is I feel like even if I had no one around me, there's always Allah. And obviously growing up with no religion, if I had no one, I would truly be alone.
Yeah. That's amazing. We've heard before, you know, some of our teachers would say that Allah says in the Quran, He is closer to us than our jugular vein, right? And just try to imagine, if something is as close to you as a jugular vein, how close must it be to you? And of course, Allah is the more lonely we think we are, the closer that we get to Allah, and that's something that a Muslim has as a kind of source of strength, right? And thereafter, after becoming embracing Islam, I'm sure you had like a lifestyle change, you know. How did you then approach balancing your previous beliefs or lifestyle with this new faith that you just embraced?
My lifestyle has changed radically. Growing up in England, just one example, drinking culture is very high.
Yeah.
But we all know. I don't want to speak too much about that. But I was at university. We were going out partying a lot, and making friends that probably I shouldn't have. And since then, especially COVID, that taught me a lot. And now my lifestyle has changed radically. I'm definitely not perfect with my lifestyle of traveling. Praying 5 times a day is extremely hard. But inshallah, this can get better. But yeah, my life is transformed.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. What are some of the things that you love about being a Muslim?
One of the biggest things, the community.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I feel like I'm in a world with a 2 billion strong family. It's amazing. How about you?
I honestly have the same answer. Like, it's one thing to have, you know, a strong belief that you can really put your heart and soul around. But, you know, when you see a brother across the street, you don't know him, but you can tell he's Muslim, you automatically have love for the brother, right? And that's something, truth be told, I've not seen anywhere else in my life, right? And even right now, I've not seen you in person, and to be honest, like this, we've just had a few interactions before this, but even I feel like I have so much love for you, right? And I'm sure it's likewise as well. So I think that's the most beautiful part about being Muslim, the love that comes knowing that, hey, you guys are Muslim brothers, and because of that, the kind of love and kindness that we show is so genuine that really can change lives, right?
And it's mutual respect.
Exactly.
Right.
I've lost count a number of times I've seen a life change because of the love and kindness that's offered to the person when he needed it the most. And I'm sure me and you, like, we probably needed Islam the most when we were given Islam, and that was because someone thought that it was a good idea to show love and kindness to a non-Muslim at the point of time, right? And eventually this non-Muslim, because of that love and kindness, became a Muslim. MashaAllah. Great. So you know, at this point of time, you know, I'm sure you have a lot of stories about love and kindness to share, you know, in your travels. Maybe just pick one of these stories that speak out the most to you. Share with us the kind of love and kindness that you've seen from Muslims all around the world.
Off the top of my head, I have so many stories, but one that really sticks out in my memories of traveling. I was driving from Karachi to Lahore in Pakistan. And there was a tiny local village surrounded by cows, sheep, in the middle of nowhere, so rural. It didn't actually come up on Google Maps where we actually were. Like, there was no name. And we were driving through, and it got really late at night. And I was with my driver, and he was so confused what to do. Where should we go? Where can we stay? We were probably going to sleep in the car. And we got out to have a chai in a really busy area. And a local family actually invited me to come and stay overnight with them. And they put me in their guest house outside. And it was such a beautiful experience. Just they were inviting a stranger into their home. They had no idea who I was. But because they're, number one, Muslim, and number two, they're so kind and respectful to other people, they invited me, you know. I could have been anyone.
Mashallah, mashallah. And I think like this more instances of love and kindness really show us as a reminder, you know, how loving and how kind, you know, and eventually God is, right, as a manifestation of his love and kindness. And I think you know, more importantly, when we receive an act of love and kindness, the next thing is to number one, like, show it forward, right? And of course, in times like this where things are very uncertain, you know, a lot of things around us are causing us to have negative emotions. You know, even social media sometimes are very conflicting, causes a lot of things that are within us brewing inside, right? If we then are the cause of an act of love and kindness, even on social media, online, virtually, in person, then it can then start something that is very powerful, right? Would you rather focus on something that makes you feel good, makes you feel positive, as opposed to something that gives you headaches, makes you feel nervous and anxious, right? There's a time for everything, right? And the time for kindness and love should outweigh the kind of negativity that we have in our lives, right? So
even just like one small example day to day, just imagine if everybody in this world smiled every day. How much of a big difference that would be.
Mashallah, mashallah. And yeah, actually, us Muslims, as mentioned, charity is not just confined to wealth, right? Charity is everything. Not just smiling, right? Helping a brother in need, you know, making a prayer for our brother in need or a sister in need. That is in charity itself. And the wealthiest person is not the person that gives the most money, right? The wealthiest person is the person with good character. Reason being, person that with good character, everyone around him benefits from his good character, right? Whereas the person with wealth only benefits others when he gives the wealth around. So mashallah, this is the beauty of Islam. So let's move a little bit you know, into the reflections about your Islamic journey, right? We wanted to ask you about the kind of advice that you would give to perhaps your younger self, you know, knowing now what you know about Islam.
What would I do if I was younger moving into now? Number one, don't believe what people are saying in the UK media, because so many people, I've mentioned it so many times, that's why I do what I do on social media, is you have to just go against the belief and truly dive in and educate yourself. That's the biggest thing I can take away from that, is because I believe so much what other people were telling me. It actually made taking much harder 10 years too late.
Mashallah, mashallah. Then in that case, for all of our new converts or people considering to embrace Islam, what advice will you give to them right now on this webinar?
Number one, make sure you have a good community around you. Because I left the UK, I was solo. I had friends in Istanbul, but it can feel a little bit lonely when you first take your Shahada, especially coming from a background like I did, Christian, atheist, whatever background. My family are not Muslim. My friends back at home are not Muslim. I now have Muslim friends in London, but it can feel very lonely sometimes. Try and get a good community around you. And if you have the time, inshallah you do, go to the mosque every day and be surrounded by that community, because it can feel lonely if you come from a background like mine.
I completely agree, right? Like Islam is something that is meant to be practiced in a group, in a community, right? So many things we learn about, and we love about Islam comes from being in a group of people, right? How are you going to show love and kindness if you're alone, right? How are you going to give good mannerisms or have good character when you're just alone all the time, right? And being around people has great benefits. For example, if you are finding it very difficult to go for classes or to practice Islam, when you're in a group of people, that's where magic happens, right? They will bring you to prayers, they will bring you to classes, and all of you guys can benefit together, right? We have this saying in our secular world and also in the religious world as well. You know, you are a accumulation of your 5 closest friends, right? So surround yourself with good people that will bring you to what is good: kindness, love, respect, and religion, right? That's something that you can really do to really upgrade yourself and what you have been doing and your habits, things like this. we have some questions that we want to answer from the audience before we move on to Q&A. These are questions that have been pre-submitted, and these questions, one of these actually relates to your travel, right? So Jabir from UK, he's asking, as a traveler, how do you pray 5 times a day, your salah, with while you're traveling? Do you use any app or do you use any resources?
Yeah, so as I touched upon this earlier, it's very, very hard. As you
Yeah.
can see, I'm very tired. And with flights, I do my best, but I'm not perfect at all. And it's something I have to work on a lot. The Muslim Pro app, of course, if you guys don't have it, you obviously do your watching, but download it and check it out. It helps me a lot. And even just reading the Quran every day. Maybe I can't pray 5 times a day, but I read the Quran every day.
Great. And I would add on to that. I think this is my perception, but I believe every Muslim's like journey starts with like the Muslim Pro app. I myself, I downloaded it to check the prayer timings, and one of the amazing things nowadays you can do is to schedule like an alarm that sounds off at every prayer timing. If you revolve your day around your prayers, you would never miss your prayers. But if you revolve prayers into your day, then there might be a chance you would miss your prayers. So these are the things that, it's a kind of a mindset thing that really changes, it changes everything. So another question that came from London, Arfa, who asked this: as reverts, do we experience dips in our iman, which is our faith? How do we overcome them, and what do we do to stay connected to Islam on a daily basis, aside from the obligations?
So as a revert, as I said earlier, you need to be surrounded by like-minded people. If you're surrounded, like Arthur from London, the UK there's so many temptations around you which you shouldn't do. So the biggest thing, have community around you if you can every single day, and be surrounded by people who are doing the best they can, and that will obviously help you a lot.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I agree, and I think when it comes to iman, the natural thing about, because we are just humans, right? There will be points of time where your faith is much stronger, and there will be times when your faith is tested, right? The most important thing is to have routines that will bring you through, right? Routines that when you feel motivated, you hold on much strongly to, and when you don't feel as motivated, they will pull you through along the way, right? And one of the things that I do myself is that I try my best to do some remembrances or read the Quran every day. And I believe in the Muslim Pro app as well, you can definitely access the Quran, that you can just even read a verse of it. If you don't understand Arabic, then read it in English as well, right? So just a few points before we move on into the Q&A, that the questions that have been sent in by our webinar participants today. Wrapping up on kindness and respect, ultimately as Muslims, we are inspired by the actions and the examples of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, right? And we've seen instances where he was kind even to the non-Muslims, right? We've seen an instance where he would walk past a house every single day on the way to the mosque, and every time he walked past this house, the woman in the house would be cursing him, would be insulting him, and things like this. And one day, and he would just walk past silently. One day he walked past and he did not hear the woman cursing him. He did not hear the woman insulting him. And what happened was that he then went to his companions. He asked, "Hey, is this woman okay? Is she fine? Because I don't hear her insulting me today," right? Eventually, he went to check up on her. And that was actually the incident that opened her heart to Islam, right? So once again, love and kindness is so important that it can change a person's life even. And this is the kind of things that we are talking about today. Small things will add up to big changes, right? So let's go into Q&A. Once again, if you have any questions, please send it to the chat right now, and we will be flashing up some questions that you guys have sent. So first and foremost, we have a question from Gabe, and he's from London. How would you advise non-Muslims to explore the Islamic faith the same way that you did, which inspired you to revert?
That's the amazing question. There's so many options you can choose. First and foremost, go to the mosque. Go to the mosque and just have a talk. Just talk to them and ask any questions you want. People in the mosque, especially when you first get there, as you explained, it can be very overwhelming. Before you get in, and once you get in, it's like taking a deep breath out, and you feel so comfortable. Go to the mosque and just talk with them. Talk to anyone inside. Just ask questions, and then you can move on from there. But definitely the biggest thing, go to the mosque.
Yeah. I think perhaps if you're fearful, know that most of the time people have a lot of kindness and respect. The ones who might not, I mean, there will be instances, if you meet 100 people, maybe one or two might be rude, but these are the
Yep.
outliers, right? And if,
Yep.
of course, if you have a Muslim friend in your circle and you're afraid to go to the mosque physically, reach out to them virtually, ask them, what is Islam about, and you can learn from them. Most
Yep.
importantly, learn from credible sources. This is one of the most important things that you have to emphasize in today's age where information is everywhere. So we have another question from Mary, and she's from Kenya. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam. I reverted a year ago. Now she's getting serious negative vibes even from her family members. What should
Are you okay to answer this first?
Yeah.
I want to see your thoughts.
Okay. I think first and foremost, you have to differentiate holding on to your faith, right, and showing respect to your family members, right, or maintaining family harmony. There's a way you can hold on to your faith, right, while giving them the due respect that they should get, right. But what you should not do is to, because of whatever that's happening in your family, completely abandon it, right. Sure, like perhaps in front of your family members, you might not have to practice because they are not comfortable with it. Practice when you're alone, right? Or if it's really very serious, sometimes even in situations where you have to pray, you can delay it to the end of the day if it causes a lot of chaos in your family. And there are many ways that Islam allows us to navigate in situations like this. The best advice I can give you is to go to a scholar or a teacher that's in your locality, tell them about everything that they need to know, and they'll give you proper advice. But just know that you can achieve both at the same time. You just have to find a way to do it.
I agree too, and also I always show respect to your parents no matter what's happened. But also, many people in this world, they're scared of the unknown, and maybe your family, they're not educated enough on the real Islam. So maybe you can sit down and talk with them very calmly and answer any questions they might have, and that will actually help a lot.
Yeah, correct. And that's 100%, man. Like, imagine you spend 3 years learning about Islam, and when you told your family, they just have that 2 or 3 days to kind of figure it out. The kind of things that you learned across 3 years compressed into that 3 days for them, it's gonna be a real shock. So you gotta give them some time as well to adjust. Yeah. All right, onwards to the next question. We have a question from England. Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam. Is it easy for you to adapt to Islam at the start as you're not used to this kind of environment?
For me, as I said, I was introduced by traveling. I loved visiting Muslim majority countries so much that I've carried it on, and it's now been over 3 years. I didn't always go to Muslim majority, but I find myself so comfortable there that actually now going back home to England is a culture shock. And it's only been three and a half years, so I love it. It was not hard for me to adapt to that environment. I adore it.
Yeah, and I completely agree. When you're around the right people, adapting is very simple. Like, if you have issues adapting to, let's say, the lifestyle when it comes to prayers or food, look at who your closest friends are, look at who you're normally around. If you're around non-Muslims, it's naturally going to be very difficult because they don't pray, that's number one, and number two, they don't eat halal food, right? And when you surround yourself with Muslims, naturally that's what you're going to do. So I think community and company is very important. But more importantly, at this moment of time, if just take a look and think about the circle of friends that you have around you. Is anyone struggling with their practice? If they are, then maybe they need an act of love or kindness from you to reach out to them to help them in their journey as well. All right. So maybe we can have 1 or 2 more questions before we move on, to conclude the session. We have a question from Irfan, and he's from India. What did you see in Islam that made you accept Islam, and what can you say about Islam?
Okay, we spoke about this a little bit earlier. How the biggest transition was to not thinking Islam was very positive, a lot of negative connotations, to then reading the Quran and listening to those recitations. How about you? Because you became Muslim 5 years ago, right?
Yeah. I think in Singapore especially, we were taught to think very secularly in a very scientific way. I think it's just built into our education. So the first thing that really attracted me to Islam was how much how it made sense. As a religion, everything made sense, And my own personal experiences with religion before Islam was that sometimes you're told not to question, because it won't make sense. But in Islam, every single question has an answer to it, right? And that really opened my heart. And of course, kind of to add in, to kind of bring that point home, I've seen, I've experienced many acts of love and kindness from Muslims in my own personal journey, and that showed me that, hey, Islam has some beauty in it, right? Otherwise, these people won't be the best people I've ever met in my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of, okay, let's take a long hard look into Islam. That's for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very similar story.
Mashallah.
Your conversion 5 years ago, mine 3.
Mashallah.
Yes, very similar
I'm
story.
constantly amazed at how we are living so far apart, but we have similar experiences. Subhanallah, mashallah. All right, okay, so I think we have 2 more questions to answer. Maybe we just flash the next one up. This is from Salma from Albania. Did you see a different person in yourself now that you are a Muslim? What type of mentality did you have when you were a non-believer, and how do you feel now?
For me, the biggest 2 things. Number one, difference is I'm so much more patient.
Mashallah.
So much more patient. And the second, before, especially in the UK, we're grown up to think that people are at different hierarchical levels. Being Muslim, everyone in your eyes are equal. It's like mutual respect to every single person.
Yeah. And I think that's something that everyone sees when they think about Islam, right? Like, so much respect and everyone is equal. I would say personally for myself, the biggest difference was that before Islam, I was someone who was like drifting. I was not moving anywhere. I was just distracted and enjoying life, the vices and things like this. Now, as a Muslim, I have a direction. I'm always moving towards something and somewhere. Everything I do should be bringing me towards that direction, which is ultimately, to get pleasure from God, right? And if you're kind to someone, God will be kind to you as well. So maybe the last question before we move on to conclude the session. All right, we have a question from Jeff. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Wa alaikum salam. What is the best way to practice halal without having easy access to it?
That's a good question. I don't think I can answer this fully because I left the UK because I didn't have direct access to it.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really hard. Really, really hard. How about you? I think because I left, I'm not the best to answer this question.
You see, to practice Islam in any locality, there's always a learning curve, right? Like, for example, halal food, the standards of it differ from country to country. And of course, like, Jane knows this very well. So the halal standard in Singapore would not be the same halal standard for in a place like Australia, right? So the best way to find out how to practice in a way that's halal, eat in a way that's halal, is to talk to someone from that locality. Again, community and friends, right?
Yeah.
They have went past that learning curve and they are practicing already. So definitely when you ask them, then you get to understand the intricacies to practicing halal in wherever you are. And definitely if there's anywhere that we're in that makes it very difficult to practice, then seek consultation to see if it's appropriate for you to move to somewhere that's easier to practice as well.
Even just go to the mosque. If you have a mosque in your local area, and if you're saying it's hard to practice halal, then maybe you don't have that close by. But if you can travel to a mosque, they can give you the best advice.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so all right, okay. I guess one last question has come up. This is towards brother Jeff. Or this is probably an answer from the comment section. You try to find alternatives in food when there's no halal food available. For example, fish, potatoes, and vegetarian food in Finland. Yeah, so anywhere in the world, if you have access to seafood, there's halal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mostly, if I'm in a non-Muslim majority country and there's no halal, I eat vegetarian.
Yeah, great. All right, so I have a few questions for myself. And these questions I love to kind of scope your thoughts on it, right? I want to ask, is there a favorite quote that you've came across in the Quran or in the sayings of the Prophet? What has really stuck to you over the past few years?
There's a couple. Maybe we can put them on the screen now, and we can talk through it. Yeah. So, and his signs that he created for you from ourselves makes you find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. Indeed, that you are signs for people who give thought. And the second, spend in the cause of Allah, and do not let your own hands throw you into destruction by withholding. And do good, for Allah certainly loves the good doers.
Mashallah. I think like the second quote, so relevant to today's topic, to do good, to bring people towards goodness, do not withhold. That's part of giving love and kindness as well. And I perhaps I'm just asking on behalf of the Singaporeans. So my next question is, are you considering to ever come to Singapore, and when are you coming?
Yes, So I was planning on coming, because I just did an incredible trip to China, Taiwan, and I was in South Korea earlier this year. And then I did a huge Central Asia, but Singapore is so high on my list. Inshallah, start of next year, I will come. But I have a couple of trips left during this year to Oman and Algeria, inshallah.
Yep.
And let's see what next year holds. I'm excited.
All right, please let us know when you're coming. I would love to meet you in person, and I would love to host you in Singapore. I'm sure many of us will do as well. And inshallah, I'll be happy to show you all the nice halal food you can get in Singapore as well.
It would be great.
It'll be great. All right. So at this point, time has passed. As Jay mentioned, if we're gonna continue talking, we can probably talk to you. Ramadan comes next year. So
Yes.
we'd just like to wrap up by giving Jay some time to to say some last words to our audiences before we wrap up the webinar.
Okay, sure. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm so happy you came. I would love if we could do this more and more and more and keep inspiring people all across the world to spread kindness. Kindness goes a long way, as we were talking earlier, even just smiling. Smiling is sunnah, so we should do it. Even if you don't have respect back to you, you should always give it out to other people. And kindness will change the world, especially in the kind of situations we're living through, especially in Palestine. We will put the information down at the end of the presentation, how you can help with that. But kindness goes a long way, and kindness will change the world. So keep smiling.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. It's been an utmost pleasure of mine to get the chance to talk to you in a situation like today. I would just like to add on with as to what you said, and just to share the saying of the Prophet. He said once that whoever guides someone to goodness will have a reward to one who did it, right? So if your act of goodness leads someone towards Islam, and if he or she embraces Islam because of that, everything he does as a Muslim would go to you, right? And Allah is the most generous. He's the one that is most giving. So he can give you anything you want, without reducing his own greatness. So let that be a motivational factor when you're thinking, hey, should I do an act of kindness to someone? And last but not least, do take some time to follow all of us on our social media. Number one, Muslim Pro. Number two, Jay on his Instagram as well as his YouTube. I promise you it's worth your time. And last but not least, Convert Central on YouTube as well as Instagram as well. So I'm excited. I hear some talk that we're gonna make it a series. So let's see what happens
I would love that. Let's see.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. With the allowance and the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let's see it happen. So thank you for everyone for spending the past 50 minutes with us. It's really been a big blessing. Just some parting words before we end the session. Number one, as mentioned at the start of the webinar, Muslim Pro is currently raising funds for the Palestine Children Relief Fund, PCRF, and I think this is shown on the screen right now. So please scan the QR code. When you donate, it's as a means of increasing your wealth and the goodness that you have in your own life. So take the time to donate. Every single cent counts. And number two as well, we have our kindness campaign. And of course, we mentioned earlier, #kindness warriors, #more kindness, more barakah. So if you see any kindness in action, take a video of it, take a photo of it, and share it on social media. Tag Muslim Pro Official, and they will reshare it on their platforms. Last but not least, we played the video earlier when we started the session. So for those who did not catch the video earlier, we're going to replay it for you right now. Bismillah.
Boleh pinjam RM3 tak? Ya. Mineral water. Boleh?
Is it okay, uncle? 谢谢你。
All right. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We will end with this, saying from the Prophet that, verily Allah, God is kind and He loves kindness. So the question that we have for everyone today, before we end, is: are you going to be a kindness warrior, for the sake of Allah? And for Jay, any last words before we end?
Yes, please keep sharing kindness all across the world. Hashtag kindness warriors, hashtag more kindness, more Baraka. Keep sharing on social media and keep spreading kindness and love. Thank you.
Great. All right, we'll see you on the next webinar. Good night, everybody. May peace be upon you, and we will see you next time.